My name's Levi, I'm from British Columbia, Canada, and I make adventure documentaries. I love telling stories about human-powered adventures, stories about seemingly ordinary people that are pushing their boundaries and seeking to do something extraordinary. The tools I bring with me to make my films all need to fill more than one purpose. I'm simply not gonna hike something into the mountains just because it's a nice to have. It really has to be an essential piece of my kit if it's gonna come with me. Making films for me is personal. The stories that I choose to tell mean something to me. And as a result, I want to craft something that will have an impact on the audience that ends up watching it. This past year, I tackled my biggest project to date. I made a film about an incredible community of slackliners and highliners and followed them as they go into the mountains of British Columbia and push their limits doing what they love. While I'm shooting a project like this, I'm constantly running through my mind, how should I be moving the camera? Where should I be putting the camera? A tool that has really become essentially my Swiss Army knife of controlled camera movements is the Kessler Second Shooter. I've been using it constantly over the past year, putting it through its paces in both studio environments and up in the mountains. This is a little bit different than a review or a tutorial per se, but in the past year of putting the second shooter to use in the field, I just really wanted to share some of the features that I've really come to love about the system, and also to share some of the tips and tricks I've learned to have a blast while shooting. The first feature I want to talk about with this entire system is how much I appreciate how flexible it is. I really like that you get to choose the pieces that you want to use for your various different setups. It's really handy that the second shooter isn't designed to work with just one slider length or one slider model, but you can actually use it on all the sliders in Kessler's range. This flexibility is perfect for me. It means when I'm heading up into the mountains, I can take my small carbon stealth, or when weight isn't an issue, I can use the more robust Cineslider. I love that with this one setup, it makes it really simple to capture automated camera moves for video, but it also works exceptionally well for doing time-lapse moves over longer periods of time. Another component about Kessler products that I've come to really appreciate is just their build quality and attention to detail. And the second shooter is no exception. I used it constantly this past year, and I'm really tough on my gear. I'm just gonna be honest, I use my gear, and the second shooter has held up brilliantly and shows no signs of slowing down anytime soon. One of the tools I found really helpful to use in conjunction with my Kessler sliders is actually the Manfrotto Magic Arm. I love this because it allows you to position the camera off the center axis of the slider. This allows you to get some unique perspectives, like looking down over your subject as you're sliding over top of it, or getting the camera as low as possible to the ground for these long dolly moves. I really feel like I'm only scratching the surface of what's possible for creative camera placements when using an arm like this. The Magic Arm is also helpful when shooting with single tripod setups. You can mount it to one side of the slider and then mount it to a leg of the tripod. This way you can ensure your slider stays level across the entire movement of the camera. When shooting untethered, I use the time-lapse function of the second shooter to help create these beautiful moving time lapses to transition different scenes in the film. The added movement helps create this sense of time passing, and I use these shots to help separate the different scenes of the film. And lastly, I have to say, the second shooter is just incredibly intuitive and straightforward to use. I'm not a big fan of instruction manuals, and in the first 15 minutes I had the second shooter, I was able to get it set up with no instructions and was ready to go for capturing gorgeous shots. I really have come to see the second shooter as a key member of my team. And I say my team, but essentially a majority of the time it's just me shooting these projects solo. And I really love the flexibility of having motion control equipment I can trust to help tell my stories the way I want to tell them.